Chinese flyers, or Saxons. 62. I now treat of the manufacture of Chinese flyers, or Saxons, as they are called by professional pyrotechnists. But it will not be sufficient merely to speak of the manner in which they are made. We must follow them into some of those combinations in complex designs in which they fulfill a very striking part. And first, the object of the Chinese flyer is to produce a circle of white fire, unattended by any scintillating radii, which can be easily worked into large pyrotechnic designs, and which is at the same time easy of construction. The Chinese flyer forms a very pretty little piece of itself when properly made, but its principal use is in combination. It is of two kinds, and these are known by the names of the single or double Saxon or flyer. First we will speak of the single Saxon. Its case should be 11 inches in length, and should be made round a former of the 1 ounce size. In order to cut your paper and board of a proper size for these cases, refer to the following woodcuts. Open a sheet of 60-pound brown paper of the imperial size, and divide it in halves lengthwise. At figure 92, it will be seen that each sheet of paper will give you 2 cases. If you use 70-pound brown paper instead of that of the 60-pound substance, you will hardly require any imperial board. But I think that the cases are better when made with a piece of the board used with the paper. Supposing, then, that you employ 60-pound brown paper, cut your imperial board as shown at figure 92A, that is, into 8 equal pieces, one of which is to be used with each strip of paper. Now paste your paper and board well all over, for you will require a hard, strong case. Then proceed to roll your paper round the former, folding it over in the manner described at paragraph 39. Then place upon the unfolded paper the piece of imperial board, and roll both up together into a close, firm case. Your former should be moistened with paste, and particular care must be taken that the inner fold of the paper, that which lies next to the former, is well saturated with paste. This will effectually prevent its being separated afterwards when dry, and will obviate one cause of failure and explosions. I have before explained the necessity for attending to this piece of advice in speaking on tourbillons. The cases for these Chinese flyers are, in fact, very much like those made for Roman candles, but as they are to contain a very much stronger composition, must have so much additional care bestowed upon their preparation. The next thing necessary is to know the principle upon which these Chinese flyers are made. A reference to figure 93 will make this easily intelligible. The composition is rammed into the cases in 2 compartments, between which and at the extreme ends of which some dry powdered clay is driven in. The clay in the center of the case is put there to form a solid substance, through which a hole can be bored to admit the spindle on which the case is to revolve. The clay at the extremities of the case is driven there to form a hard ending, which is capable of resisting the force of the combustion of the composition. The intervening spaces between the ends and center of clay are filled with composition. The cases are filled over a settle proper for the purpose, of which a sketch is given at figure 104. When the cases are dry, take one of them and place one of its end over the projecting piece at the top of the settle. You will now require a long drift, rather less than half an inch in diameter, so that it will pass easily in and out of the case. It must, of course, be of a length not less than that of your case. I must suppose that you provided yourself with a ladle, proper for filling the cases of brilliant fire, and the wheel cases, of which I have treated. The same ladle will now come into use again. In case you have not such a ladle, buy or make yourself one in metal, which will pass easily into cases of the 1 ounce size. In this ladle take up as much powdered clay as will, when driven, occupy 1/4 of an inch in the length of the case. Drive it in firmly by means of your drift and mallet. Then put in the composition, for which the following are the formulas. Composition for Saxons. Meal powder 16 parts, nitre 8 parts, sulphur 6 parts, or meal powder 6 parts, nitre 3 to 4 parts, sulphur 2 parts, antimony 2 parts. Of these two I prefer the former, but the latter is perhaps better when the flyers are to be fired singly, as it produces a much greater halo of sparks. Now drive in the selected composition, a ladleful at a time, giving from 12 to 16 blows to each, until it rises to half an inch below the middle of the case. It is a good plan to mark cases, so that there shall be no possibility of mistake as to where this point is. Remember that you will require 1 inch of clay in the exact center of the case, in the middle of which clay you will have afterwards to bore a hole. Upon the top of this clay ram in more composition until the case is filled to about 3/8 of an inch from the end. Upon this second composition drive in as much powdered clay as you drove in at the other end of the case, taking care that it is made very firm, and is not at all likely to be blown out by the combustion of the composition. The next thing to be done is to bore the central hole through the clay. I do this generally with a brodle first, and afterwards with a pin bit or spoon bit. The size of spindle which is best adapted for such fireworks as these is that which is 3/16 of an inch in diameter. I should therefore use a brodle of about 1/8 of an inch in diameter first, and then a pin bit of the same size as the spindle to be employed. Care must be taken that the hole is not made unnecessarily large, and that it is bored at right angles with the length of the case. Having accomplished this, you have in the next place to bore the holes from which the fire is to issue. These are to be made on opposite sides of the case at each end, and about half an inch from the ends of the case. I make these holes with a brodle, beginning with a small one and finishing with one rather less than 3/16 of an inch in diameter. I believe the true size of the awl that I use to finish with is 5/32 of an inch. I mention this because some considerable nicety is required with regard to the sizes of these holes, otherwise the Saxon will either burst or not have force enough. The compositions that I have given have reference to holes of the above size, and will not be found to succeed well with any other sized aperture. I bore these holes about halfway through the composition, and then nearly fill up the hole with some of the same composition, leaving room for the ends of the match to be pressed in. A very convenient instrument for filling up these holes after boring, also for filling up tourbillon holes and the necks of wheel or brilliant fire cases, is that represented at figure 94. which consists of a piece of stout brass wire driven into a broadel handle and having a flat end. This simple instrument will serve also to press in the ends of the quick match, which is to connect the extremities of the case. At figure 93 is represented the manner in which the quick match is applied. A hole is bored at A. A piece of match is put into it and carried to the end of the case for the convenience of lighting the flyer. A piece of thin paper is pasted over the match and round the end of the flyer to keep the match in its place, and to protect it from injury and from taking fire before its time. Another hole is made at B, just large enough to admit an end of quick match. The match is inserted into this hole and is carried on to another hole at C, bored exactly like the one at A, and at the same distance from the end of the case, but on the opposite side. The reason for all this contrivance will be readily understood. The Chinese flyer is lighted at the match which enters the hole A. It revolves on the spindle which is passed through its center, and in a direction opposite to that of its mouth. The composition continues to burn till it reaches the point marked B, when it communicates its fire by means of the quick match with the other aperture at C. If the flyer be required to burn by itself, a piece of touch paper should be pasted round the end at A, and twisted into a point. If, however, it is to be connected with other pieces, some thin paper should be used, 2 or 3 folds thick, and projecting an inch beyond the end of the case, so as to allow the communicating match from the other pieces to be tied in. In my opinion, no Saxon or Chinese flyer, single or double, used singly or in combination, should be without a color in its center. For this purpose, colors in cases of the 1-ounce size will be found sufficient. A case an inch long, independently of its clay end, will burn as long as is required. A case an inch long, independently of its clay end, will burn as long as is required. It may be fixed on in such a position as that indicated at D in figure 3. It can either be tied on with wire or glued on, or fastened in both ways if considered necessary. It must be connected by quick match with the end of the case, which is fired first. The colors that I recommend to be used for this purpose are those given at numbers 21, 22, and 26 in paragraph 50. It is a good plan to fill the cases with at least 2 colors, if the Saxon is to be fired by itself, so that it may have a varied center. But if the piece is to consist of more than one Saxon, then it is best to employ a separate color, which does not change with each. I shall say more about the construction of pieces consisting of Saxons presently, when I have described the making of what is known among pyrotechnists under the name of the double Saxon. 64. This, though a larger firework than the single, is quite as easily made, and is more effective. It consists of 2 cases attached to a wooden center, such as is represented at figure 95. It is simply a turned piece of light wood, having ends of such a size as will fit tightly into the Saxon cases. It is about 5 inches and a half long, and 4 inches and a quarter between its shoulders. You can procure these in any quantity of Mr. Darby or Mr. Newman. The cases for double Saxons are made in the same manner as described above for the single Saxons, but are of a different length. The following directions for the division of paper and board will give you cases of a size proper for double Saxons. Cut your 60-pound brown paper lengthwise into 3 equal strips, as represented at the annexed figure 96. By this division, your cases will be about 7½ inches in length. Your imperial board must be cut, as shown in the illustration at figure 97, into 12 equal pieces, so that 4 sheets of 60-pound brown paper and 1 of imperial board will give you material enough for 12 cases, and therefore enough for 6 double Saxons. The cases are to be filled in the same way as directed above under the head of single Saxons. After placing your case upon the settle, drive in as much clay as will, when compressed, occupy 1/4 inch, and see that it is very firm and secure. Then drive in your composition, made from one of the formulas given above, a ladleful at a time, until you have filled the case to within 1 inch of the end. Drive in another small quantity of clay, and you will then have 3/4 inch, or thereabouts, of unoccupied space at the end of the case. This is to be filled with the end of the wooden center, represented at figure 95. When your 2 cases are filled, glue them on to the center, taking care that they are not likely to come unfastened by any fair means. You will have no trouble in boring the central hole for these, for you buy them already bored in the right manner. But you will have to bore through the case to the composition to make a vent for the fire. The holes are to be made about 1/2 inch from each end and on opposite sides, as represented at A and B in figure 98. After boring the holes, be careful to fill them up again with some of the same composition, leaving only room enough to receive the ends of the quick match, which should be pressed in with the little instrument represented at figure 94. This quick match is first to be put into the hole at A and secured there, and then carried over that end of the case and down the other side to the hole at B, where it is to be secured in the same way. Over the quick match is to be pasted a piece of thin paper. A strip 1 inch wide and 20 inches long is what is required for this purpose. This strip is to be pasted all along the match. This will prevent its being injured or ignited at the wrong time. It is hardly necessary for me to state that the same plan must be adopted with regard to the quick match that is put to single Saxons. The paper is simply to be pasted over the match in the same way as is done in the case of tourbillons. A wider strip of paper is next to be cut, which is to be pasted round the end A of the double Saxon, and to project beyond the end, in order to receive the quick match from other pieces. In order to attach a color to the center of these double Saxons, and they should never be used without a color, a nail may be driven into the wooden center in the position indicated at C in figure 98, and the colored fire case bound to the nail with a round or 2 of fine wire. The case at C must then be connected by quick match with the end at A. All the double Saxons that I have seen have been made in this manner, but there is no reason why they should not burn one end at a time, like the single Saxons. The difference will be that if both ends take fire at once, The pieces will last just half the time that they would otherwise take. The compositions that I have recommended for filling them are quite strong enough to make them revolve well, if only burning at one end. But if the two ends are arranged to burn simultaneously, a much more perfect circle of white fire is produced, and this, I presume, is the object of their always being made to burn double. In deciding whether they shall burn singly or not, you must take into consideration the questions, how are they to be used, and with what other pieces are they to burn? You will, no doubt, have plenty of devices of your own making into which these illuminated Saxons will enter. A very little experience will show you their effect, and teach you how long they last, and how to regulate their use. And here let me give you a hint that you will find very useful with regard to these, and to all fireworks which can be used in combination. Whenever you ascertain the length of time that any piece, say a Roman candle, a brilliant gerb, a Saxon, or a wheel case, is in burning, make a note of it in a book kept for the purpose. It will save you much trouble and calculation, and will add very much to the beauty of your compound pieces, to have a written statement of the duration of any component part of them, so that you may have no excess in any particular, and that it may appear that your design has been made with judgment, and is not the result of a chance mixture of pieces. I trust that I have left no particular unnoticed in my directions for making these single and double Saxons. If I have, I hope that the principle on which they are constructed is laid down with sufficient clearness to put the mode of its working out beyond a doubt. Saxon Wheel 65. I now wish to supply a few designs for combinations in which these Saxons, together with other pieces, find a place. The first that I shall give will be that which is called a Saxon wheel. It consists of a wooden framework about 3 feet in diameter, having 6 spokes, and into 3 of these spokes the spindles are driven, on which 3 double Saxons are to revolve. On the circumference of the wheel, cases are tied filled with brilliant fire made from the following formula: meal powder 4 parts, steel filings 1 part. These cases may be of the 1-ounce size and must burn 2 at a time. This is easily effected by connecting the mouths of the cases on opposite sides of the wheel with quick match, and then from the tails of these cases carrying leaders to the heads of the next 2, and so on. The number of cases on the circumference is not a matter of importance. I have drawn 6 in the sketch at figure 100. In the center should be placed a single triangle wheel, the cases on which may be of the fixed case size, spoken of in paragraph 41, but not quite so long. 5½ inches will be found long enough. The cases on this triangle wheel may be filled with the brilliant fire. The piece will then require 6 1-ounce wheel cases in brilliant fire, 3 triangle wheel cases in brilliant fire, 3 double Saxons illuminated with colors. You may make this wheel perform in any manner that you choose. I may, however, suggest one order for its performance. I should first light the triangle wheel and let its 3 cases expend themselves. This central triangle must revolve upon the same axis on which the larger wheel turns. Then I should advise you to fire the 2 connected cases on opposite sides of the large wheel, and let these convey their fire to the other cases which follow them. When 4 of these cases are consumed, or rather I should say when 2 couples of these cases are consumed, fire the quick match which connects the illuminated Saxons. You will see that the central triangle is a separate piece and will not require to be connected with the other part of the design. The Saxons must be connected by quick match with one another, and must have a leader left by which to fire them. The outside wheel cases must also have a leader by which they can be ignited at the proper moment. Especial care must be taken that these leaders are not too near one another, or you will probably find your whole piece ignited at one time, and not in the order which you had intended it to observe. The triangle wheel will, of course, be in front of the other wheel, and so the fire from it will not start the other pieces before their time. The best plan for igniting the Saxons at the right moment is to make a fuse to last just the time that the two first couples of wheel cases take to burn out, and so to convey its fire to the Saxons. These fuses are a larger sort of port fire, primed at both ends, with a quick match leading to and from them. The fuse must be lighted by the same leader which fires the wheel cases, and if it be only of the proper length, will, when consumed, pass its fire on to the Saxons at the proper time. In the sketch at figure 100, it will be seen that the cases at AA are to burn together. Those at BB will follow them, and while AA and BB are burning, the fuse at D is also burning, and should last precisely the same time. Then when CC take their fire from BB, the Saxons take their fire from the fuse at D. I hope this is intelligible. I can answer for the beauty of the design, if properly carried out. You may put on the three Saxons a red, a green, and a purple fire, which will make a good contrast, and you will further improve your piece by putting a changeable color on the center of the triangle wheel. Put the end of the leader E in such a position that it is not ignited by the fire from the triangle. There is also a very pretty fixed piece, of more simple construction than the above, in which you may use 3 single Saxons. It consists of 3 Saxons illuminated, and 3 fixed cases of brilliant fire. A fuse will be found useful in this piece, as in the last, but you can do without it here. Connect the 3 Saxons with leaders. Connect also the 3 fixed cases with leaders, and carry from these another leader to some point where you can conveniently light it with a port fire. Fire the Saxons, which we will suppose are single ones, and let them burn until one end of each is consumed. Then fire the fixed cases of brilliant fire, which should each have a report at its end. A sketch of the shape of this piece is given at figure 101. Saxon Square, 66. The next design that I shall give is known by the name of the Saxon Square. The sketch at figure 99 shows the form of it. It consists of a square wooden frame, used diamond-wise, that is, with one of its angles downwards, and not one of its sides downwards. The pieces required to mount it are as follows: 8 brilliant fixed cases, 4 Saxons illuminated with colors, 1 illuminated triangle wheel for center. The framework may be about 30 inches square. In the center place a brilliant illuminated triangle wheel. A double triangle will be the best for this purpose, and will make the piece last longer. If the Saxons burn at both ends at once, they must be fired with the brilliant fixed cases. But if one end only burns at a time, the fixed cases may burn with the second halves of the Saxons. The fixed cases should all be reported. Let 2 of the cases on the triangle wheel burn first. Then let the color in the center of the triangle take fire, and burn with the remaining 4 cases. Then let the first halves of the Saxons take fire when the 4th wheel case begins, and let the brilliant cases come on with the 6th of the wheel cases, and with the second halves of the Saxons. In this and in all other cases where a triangle or any wheel is employed as a center, it must be brought well forward so that its fire will not injure any other part of the piece. If it be thought advisable to increase slightly the size and beauty of this piece, place 3 brilliant fixed cases in the intervals between the Saxons instead of 2, and let them be fixed so as to form a kind of Prince of Wales feather in each place. I now come to a design which I have used, and can therefore speak from experience of the beauty of its effect. I employed it at the close of an exhibition, and I can assure you that it makes no inconsiderable finale. It consists of the following component parts: 16 brilliant fixed cases reported, 4 double Saxons illuminated, 4 5-pointed stars. This piece will be much better if it has a brilliant triangle or double triangle wheel in its center. If a double triangle be used, it will begin first and last out through the performance of the piece. The sketch given at figure 102 will speak for itself as to design, shape, outline, etc., etc. But I may as well suggest in this case, as I have in the others, an order for its changes, or mutations, as the authorities delight to call them. I will suppose that you use a brilliant double triangle wheel in the center. This, of course, has 6 small cases upon it, and should have also a color in its center. Fire this wheel first, and let 2 of its cases be consumed. Then fire the 4 colored lights which are to be substituted for the 5-pointed stars. 2 of these colored lights may be green and 2 purple. Then, when 2 more of the cases on the triangle are burnt out, strike in the double Saxons and the brilliant fixed cases. This piece will, of course, take you some time to make, and will require some patience and a good deal of nicety and precision in its arrangements. But it will fully repay you for all the pains that you bestow upon its preparation. I think the color on the double triangle wheel had better be purple, those on the Saxons red, the other 4 colors, as I have said, green and purple. At figure 103, I have drawn the wooden center of a double Saxon to show you an easier way of fastening on your colors. You have simply to bore a hole with a small brodle through the clay end of the colored light case, and pass through it a piece of small soft iron or copper wire. The ends of the wire are then bent round the wooden center and twisted together tightly at the back. Figure 104 represents a settle proper for the making of Saxons. It is to be fixed or screwed into a block, such as I have drawn in the illustrations for Roman candles.